The air inside the crystal mines of Velthros burned with chemical dust. Daewon coughed into his sleeve as he swung the heavy hammer against the glowing rock face. His arms ached. They always ached. 15 years of slavery had carved lines into his face that made him look older than his 32 years. Around him, hundreds of other humans worked in the dim light. The aliens called them workers, but everyone knew the truth. They were slaves. Property. Tools that breathed and bled and eventually broke. Daewon paused to wipe sweat from his forehead. The Overseer, a massive creature with 6 legs and armor-plated skin, watched from the platform above. Its multiple eyes tracked every movement. Any sign of laziness meant punishment. Any sign of resistance meant death. During the brief rest period, Daewon pulled a small piece of wood from his pocket. He had found it weeks ago near the waste disposal area. A miracle in this world of stone and metal. His fingers worked quickly, carving with a tiny shard of crystal he kept hidden in his boot. The shape was almost complete now. A bird with wings spread wide. He did not know why he carved birds. Perhaps because they represented something he would never have again. Freedom. The ability to go anywhere without chains. Back to work, the Overseer's voice boomed through the translation device. The sound hurt Daewon's ears. He tucked the wooden bird back into his pocket and lifted his hammer. The crystal face glowed brighter as he struck it. This particular mineral powered the ships that traveled between stars. Earth had refused to give it freely, so the Galactic Hegemony had taken it. They had taken everything. Daewon remembered the day the alien ships appeared in Earth's sky. He had been 17, working in his family's restaurant in the city. The ships were beautiful at first, like moving stars. Then they began firing. The war lasted 3 months. Earth's weapons were useless against technology thousands of years more advanced. His parents died in the first week. His sister disappeared during the roundups. Daewon never learned what happened to her. The mining shift stretched on for hours. Time moved strangely underground. Sometimes Daewon forgot whether it was day or night on the surface. Not that it mattered. Slaves worked when they were told to work and slept when they were allowed to sleep. A commotion near the main tunnel caught his attention. The Overseers were scrambling, organizing themselves into neat lines. Their usual cruelty transformed into nervous efficiency. Someone important was visiting. Daewon kept working. Important visitors meant nothing good for slaves. Then she entered the chamber. Lady Hana moved like water, graceful despite her height. She stood at least 7 feet tall, her body elegant and alien. 4 arms moved with precise coordination. Her skin shimmered with colors that shifted between blue and purple in the harsh light. She wore robes that looked like they cost more than the entire mining operation. Daewon had seen the Aetheron species before. They were nobility in the hegemony, serving as administrators and military commanders. They were also known for their complete lack of emotion. Logic and efficiency were their gods. Lady Hana walked slowly through the mining chamber, her large eyes observing everything. An entourage of officials followed her, explaining production numbers and efficiency reports. She listened without expression. Daewon tried to focus on his work. Being noticed by nobility was dangerous. Then disaster struck. His hands, slippery with sweat and exhaustion, lost their grip on the hammer. The heavy tool fell, clattering against the stone floor. The sound echoed through the chamber like an alarm. Everything stopped. The Overseer was on him in seconds. The creature's massive hand grabbed Daewon by the throat and lifted him off the ground. "Clumsy animal," it growled. "You damage equipment." "I am sorry," Daewon choked out. It was an accident. No excuses. The Overseer's other hand formed a fist. The blow caught Daewon across the face. Pain exploded through his skull. He tasted blood. The Overseer hit him again and again. The world became a blur of agony. Then a voice cut through the violence. "Stop." The word was quiet but carried absolute authority. The Overseer froze, fist raised for another strike. Lady Hana stood a few feet away. Her expression remained neutral, but something in her posture suggested tension. "Put the human down," she said. The Overseer hesitated only a moment before obeying. Daewon collapsed to the ground, gasping for air. His vision swam with dark spots. "This slave broke protocol, Lady Hana," the Overseer explained quickly. "He must be disciplined." "I see." Hana moved closer. She looked down at Daewon with those huge alien eyes. "What is your designation?" Daewon struggled to speak. "Worker to 7394. Stand up. He forced himself to his feet, swaying slightly. That was when the wooden bird fell from his torn pocket. It clattered on the stone between them. Everyone stared at it. Possessions were forbidden for slaves. The overseer reached for it, but Hana was faster. One of her 4 hands scooped up the carving with surprising gentleness. She examined it closely, turning it over with careful fingers. "You made this?" she asked Daewon. He wanted to lie. He wanted to protect himself. But something in her tone made him answer truthfully. "Yes, why a bird?" "Because—" Daewon's voice cracked. "Because they can fly away." Silence filled the chamber. The other slaves had stopped working to watch. The overseers shifted nervously. No one knew what would happen next. Lady Hana studied the carving for a long moment. Then she looked at Daewon again. This time something flickered in her eyes. Something that might have been recognition or curiosity or perhaps something else entirely. "This slave," she announced to the officials. "I am purchasing him." The head administrator blinked in confusion. "My lady? This is most irregular. Humans are not suitable for household service. They are violent and unpredictable. I did not ask for your opinion." Hana's voice remained calm but left no room for argument. "Arrange the transfer immediately. I will pay whatever the mining operation requires as compensation." The officials scrambled to comply. No one refused Lady Hana. Daewon stood frozen in shock. He did not understand what was happening. Why would an Aetheron noble want a human slave? What terrible fate awaited him now? Hana handed the wooden bird back to him. Their fingers touched briefly. Her skin felt surprisingly warm. "Bring your carving," she said softly. "You will need it where we are going." Within an hour, Daewon found himself cleaned, processed, and loaded onto a transport ship. As Velthros fell away below him, he clutched the wooden bird in his hand and wondered if he had just been saved or doomed. The transport ship landed on Thesara 3 days later. Daewon pressed his face against the small window and stared at the alien world below. Crystal towers reached toward the purple sky like frozen waterfalls. Floating platforms moved between buildings, carrying citizens who never needed to touch the ground. Everything gleamed with wealth and power. This was the heart of the galactic hegemony, the place where humanity's conquerors lived in comfort, while humans died in mines across the galaxy. Guards escorted Daewon through processing. They fitted him with clean clothes, scanned his body for diseases, and injected him with a translation device that burrowed into his ear canal. The pain made his eyes water, but he stayed silent. Slaves learned quickly not to complain. Lady Hana's estate sat in the noble district, surrounded by gardens that defied nature. Trees with silver leaves grew next to flowers that sang soft melodies. Water flowed upward in fountains that created impossible shapes. Daewon had never seen such beauty. Inside, the mansion was even more impressive. Walls made of transparent crystal showed the city beyond. Furniture floated without support. Lights responded to movement, brightening when someone entered a room and dimming when they left. A household manager, a thin alien with too many joints in its arms, showed Daewon to his quarters. The room was small but cleaner than anywhere he had lived in 15 years. A real bed. A private bathroom. A window that actually opened. "You will serve Lady Hana directly," the manager explained in a cold voice. "You will clean her personal chambers, prepare her meals, and attend to any task she requires. You will not speak unless spoken to. You will not look directly at her unless given permission. You will not touch anything without authorization. Do you understand?" "Yes," Daewon said quietly. "Good. Lady Hana is generous, but she expects perfection. Disappoint her and you will wish you had stayed in the mines." The first week passed in a blur. Daewon learned the layout of the massive estate. He discovered which rooms Lady Hana used and which remained locked. He memorized her schedule, her preferences, her habits. She was kind in her own distant way. She never hit him. Never screamed, never threatened. She spoke to him politely, almost as if he were a real person instead of property. It confused him. He kept waiting for cruelty that never came. Late at night, when his duties were finished, Daewon sat in his small room and carved. He found scraps of wood in the recycling bins and shaped them into figures. Birds mostly, sometimes other animals from Earth that he remembered from childhood. The work kept his hands busy and his mind quiet. One night, unable to sleep, Daewon wandered the estate's hallways. Most aliens slept during these hours. The floating lights dimmed to near darkness. His footsteps made no sound on the smooth floors. He found himself in a wing he had never explored before. Large doors lined the corridor, all sealed with electronic locks. Curiosity pulled him forward. He knew he should return to his quarters. This was exactly the kind of behavior that got slaves punished, but something drew him onward. He reached the end of the corridor. The final door stood slightly open, light spilling through the crack. Music drifted out. Human music, a guitar playing soft melodies that Day One recognized. From his childhood, his heart pounded. As he pushed the door wider, the room beyond stole his breath books. Thousands of books lined the walls from floor to ceiling. Not alien data tablets, but actual paper books from Earth. Day One saw titles in Korean, English, Spanish, Chinese. He saw novels and poetry and history texts, things he thought were lost forever. In the center of the room stood display cases filled with more treasures. Paintings showed landscapes from Earth. Photographs captured moments of human life. Musical instruments rested on stands. Clothes from different cultures hung on careful racks. Toys and trinkets and everyday objects that meant nothing to aliens but everything to humans. Day One moved through the space like a ghost, visiting his own past. He touched a baseball, feeling the leather worn smooth. He picked up a small clay pot decorated with traditional Korean patterns. Tears burned in his eyes. How had Lady Hana collected all of this? Why, beautiful, is it not? Day One spun around. Lady Hana stood in the doorway watching him. She wore simple robes instead of her usual formal attire. Without all the official decorations, she looked somehow more real. I am sorry, Day One stammered, putting down the pot carefully. I should not be here. I will accept whatever punishment. No punishment. Hana entered the room, moving to stand beside a glass case containing old vinyl records. I should have locked the door properly. The fault is mine. Silence stretched between them. Day One did not know what to say. Nothing made sense. Do you know what we are taught about humans? Hana asked suddenly. Her voice carried a strange emotion that Day One could not identify. We are taught that your species is primitive, violent, barely intelligent. We are taught that enslaving you is mercy, that you are better off under our control. That is what they say. Day One agreed quietly. They are wrong. Hana turned to face him. Her large eyes reflected the room's soft light. I have studied your culture for 7 years. I have read your books, listened to your music, watched your films. I have learned more about beauty and meaning from humans than from my entire life among my own people. Day One stared at her. I do not understand. My species eliminated emotion thousands of years ago, Hana continued. She reached out with one hand to touch a painting of mountains at sunset. We decided that feelings made us weak. We engineered them out of our genetics, generation by generation. We became perfect, logical, efficient, empty. She looked back at him. Then I discovered human art, human stories. I felt something I had no name for. Something that made me want to weep and laugh and live instead of simply existing. Why are you telling me this? Day One asked. Because I am alone. The words came out like a confession. My husband died 2 years ago in a border war. I barely grieved. I barely felt anything, until I found this collection. Until I learned that there was another way to be alive. Hana's forearms moved in a gesture of helplessness. Among my people, this is shameful. This fascination with inferior species is considered perversion. Mental illness. If anyone discovered this room, I would lose everything. My status, my wealth, perhaps my life. Then why risk it? Because for the first time since I was created, I feel real. Hana moved closer to Day One. I bought you because when I saw that carved bird, I knew you understood. You create beauty in darkness. You hold on to hope when everything says you should surrender. That is not primitive. That is miraculous. Day One looked around the room again, seeing it with new eyes. This was not the collection of a conqueror stealing trophies. This was a shrine built by someone desperate for connection. I can teach you, he heard himself say, about the things in this room. About what they mean. Why humans made them. Hana's expression shifted. Hope flickered across her alien features. You would do that? You save me from the mines. You treat me with kindness. Yes, I will teach you. For the first time, Day One saw Lady Hana smile. It was small and uncertain, as if her face did not quite remember how to form the expression, but it was genuine. Then we have an agreement, she said softly. That night marked a change. Day One's duties expanded to include time in the hidden room. He explained the stories behind paintings. He taught Hana to read simple Korean poetry. He showed her how to hold a guitar and play basic chords. She learned quickly, absorbing everything with an intensity that sometimes frightened him. She asked endless questions. Why did humans cry at sad songs? What made something beautiful? How could words on paper create entire worlds in the mind? Daewon answered as best he could, and slowly, carefully, a bond formed between them. Not master and slave, something else, something neither could quite name. But Daewon sensed danger growing around them. The household staff noticed Lady Hana's changing behavior, her increasing distraction, her unusual interest in her human servant. In the shadows of the crystal towers, people were beginning to watch, and wonder, and plan. 6 months passed like a dream inside the crystal estate. Daewon found himself living 2 lives. During the day, he performed his duties as a servant, cleaning and organizing under the watchful eyes of the household staff. But every evening, after the other workers had gone to their quarters, he slipped into the hidden room with Lady Hana. The lessons transformed both of them. Hana learned to play simple songs on the salvaged piano. Her 4 hands gave her an advantage, allowing her to reach keys that would have required 2 human players. She cried the first time she successfully played an entire melody. The tears confused her. She touched her wet cheeks with wonder as if discovering a new sense. Is this normal? She asked Daewon. This water from my eyes? Very normal, he assured her, feeling his own throat tighten with emotion. It means the music moved you, that you felt something real, she laughed then. The sound was unpracticed and strange but genuine. I feel so much lately. Joy, sadness, curiosity. Sometimes I do not know what to do with all these sensations. That is called being alive, Daewon said quietly. He taught her about human philosophy and history. They read ancient poetry together, Hana struggling with the metaphors and emotional language that her logical mind had never encountered. She particularly loved the old Korean poets, the ones who wrote about mountains and seasons and longing. This poet says the mountain is lonely, Hana observed one evening, her finger tracing the words. But mountains are not alive. They cannot feel loneliness. The poet feels lonely, Daewon explained. He sees his own emotion in the mountain. Humans do that. We put our feelings into the world around us. How strange. Hana looked up from the book, and how wonderful. But the world outside their hidden sanctuary was growing darker. Lord Taeyang, Hana's cousin and a high-ranking military official, came to visit one afternoon. Daewon served them tea in the formal reception hall, keeping his eyes downcast as proper servants should. But he listened. You have changed, cousin, Taeyang said. His voice carried suspicion like poison. The family has noticed. Your attendance at social functions has decreased. You spend too much time alone. I am still in mourning, Hana replied smoothly. My husband has only been gone 2 years. Grief should not last so long. It is inefficient. Taeyang's multiple eyes fixed on Daewon as he poured more tea. And I hear you have acquired a human pet. Unusual choice. He serves adequately. Humans are dangerous, Hana. They spread ideas like disease. The Cultural Purity Bureau monitors these things. Daewon felt ice form in his stomach. The Cultural Purity Bureau was responsible for maintaining hegemony values. They investigated sedition, cultural contamination, and anything that might threaten the established order. I am aware of their function, Hana said calmly. I have nothing to hide. After Taeyang left, Hana found Daewon in the kitchen. Her usual composure had cracked. We must be more careful, she said urgently. If they discover the collection, then destroy it. The words hurt Daewon to speak, but he forced them out. Sell me to another house. Protect yourself, no. Hana's 4 hands clenched into fists. I will not surrender this. For the first time in my existence, I feel something real. I will not go back to that empty life. They will destroy you if they find out. Then we must ensure they do not find out. But secrets have a way of escaping. Rumors began spreading through the noble district. Lady Hana was acting strange. She had been seen smiling. She had played music in her private chambers, music that sounded human. Her servants reported odd behavior. The whispers reached the Cultural Purity Bureau. One evening, Daewon returned to his quarters to find everything searched. His few possessions had been moved. His carvings were gone. Fear gripped his heart. They were investigating. He found Hana in the hidden room, frantically moving books and artifacts. They came today, she said without looking at him. Officials. They asked to tour the estate. I delayed them, but they will return with authorization. We need a plan, Daewon said. I have contacts, Hana admitted. Others like me. Aliens who have discovered human culture and found it transformative. We communicate secretly, trade artifacts, share information. I can reach out to them. How many others? More than you would think. Hundreds, perhaps thousands across the hegemony. Scientists, artists, philosophers, people who feel suffocated by our perfect, emotionless society. Hana finally looked at him. We call ourselves Terraphiles, lovers of Earth. The revelation stunned Daewon. He had thought Hana was unique. Instead, there was an entire underground network of aliens fascinated by human culture. Why? He asked. Why does our culture affect you so strongly? Hana sat down at the piano, her fingers touching the keys without playing. Because you have what we lost. You feel deeply. You create beauty from suffering. You hope even when hope is irrational. These things terrify the hegemony leadership because they are contagious. She played a single note, letting it ring through the room. When I first heard human music, it was like waking from a long sleep. Every song taught me something new about existence. Every story showed me possibilities I never imagined. And I realized that my people have not evolved beyond emotion. We have crippled ourselves. The hegemony fears this, desperately. They conquered Earth not just for resources, but to eliminate a threat. Human culture, if allowed to spread, would undermine everything they built. It would make their citizens question the system. Ask why they cannot feel. Wonder what else they have lost. The piano note faded into silence. That is why they will come for me. Not because I collected artifacts, but because I have become infected with something dangerous, hope. A loud crash from somewhere in the estate made them both jump. Shouting voices followed. The unmistakable sound of doors being broken. They are here, Hana whispered. Earlier than I thought. Daewon moved to the door and looked out. Security forces in black armor were searching the building, moving room by room. He recognized the insignia on their shoulders. Cultural Purity Bureau. We have minutes at most, he said. Hana stood and moved to a panel in the wall. She pressed her hand against it and a hidden compartment opened. Inside were data chips and communication devices. Take these, she told Daewon. They contain information about the Terraphile network. Names, locations, communication codes. If I am arrested, someone must warn the others. They will search me too. Not if you hide properly. There is a service tunnel beneath the kitchen. It leads to the city's maintenance system. You can escape. I will not leave you, Daewon protested. Hana grabbed his shoulders with two of her hands. You must. I am one person. The network is thousands. They need warning, please. The sound of boots in the hallway grew louder. Go, Hana urged. Run, survive, tell others what we built here. Daewon took the data chips with shaking hands. He wanted to argue, to fight, to stay. But he understood. This was bigger than both of them. Thank you, he said, for everything. For making me feel human again. Thank you, Hana replied, tears streaming down her alien face. For teaching me to feel it all. The door exploded inward. Armored figures flooded the room. Daewon ran for the service entrance Hana had described. Behind him, he heard her voice raised in defiance, challenging the intruders. He did not look back. He could not bear to. Down through dark tunnels, he fled, clutching the data chips like holy relics. Above him, he knew Hana was being arrested. Her collection was being seized. Her life was ending, but something else was beginning. Something that would shake the stars themselves. Daewon emerged into the city's lower levels, where maintenance workers and the poor lived in the shadows of crystal towers. He had no plan, no resources, just information that could save thousands or doom them all. He thought of Hana's smile when she first played a complete song. Her laughter at a joke in a human film. Her tears reading poetry. The hegemony had made a terrible mistake. They thought they could crush hope by crushing people. But hope was never about people. It was about ideas, and ideas once planted grew like wildfire. Daewon spent 3 days hiding in the maintenance tunnels beneath the Sara. He drank water from leaking pipes and ate scraps from recycling bins. The data chips Hana gave him felt heavy in his pocket, weighted with responsibility and danger. On the 4th day, hunger forced him to the surface. He emerged in a district he had never seen before. where the buildings were shorter and darker. This was where the working class lived, the aliens who maintained the infrastructure that kept the nobility comfortable. A small message cafe sat on a corner, the kind of place where beings went to access the network anonymously. Daewon had no money, but desperation pushed him inside. The owner was a small alien with gray skin and too many fingers. It looked at Daewon with suspicion. Humans are not allowed here. I can pay, Daewon lied. How? Slaves have no currency. Daewon pulled out one of the data chips. With information, the owner's multiple eyes widened. It reached for the chip, but Daewon pulled it back. First, I need access to your communication terminal. And food. After a tense moment, the owner nodded. 10 minutes. No more. The chip contained hundreds of contact codes. Daewon did not know which to trust. He chose one at random and sent a simple message. Hana has been taken. They know about us. The response came in seconds. Meet at the address below. Come alone. Trust no one. The address was in the industrial sector, 3 transit stops away. Daewon had no identification papers, no way to legally travel. He would have to risk it. He stole clothing from a laundry facility, simple workers' coveralls that might help him blend in. The transit stations were crowded with aliens heading to their shifts. Daewon kept his head down and his movements purposeful. Security drones floated overhead, scanning the crowds with mechanical eyes. At the 3rd station, one of the drones paused near him. Daewon's heart hammered in his chest, but then the drone moved on, distracted by some other target. The industrial sector smelled of chemicals and burning metal. Factories churned day and night, producing goods for the hegemony's endless expansion. Daewon found the address, a warehouse that looked abandoned. Inside, 3 figures waited in the shadows. The first stepped forward into the dim light. She was human, a woman with short black hair and burn scars covering half her face.
I am Suman, she said in Korean.
I used to be a slave like you. Now I broker information between humans and sympathetic aliens. Relief flooded through Daewon. Another human. He was not alone. This is Jiwon, Suman continued, gesturing to one of the other figures. He is a hegemony scientist who has been studying human neurochemistry. Jiwon stepped forward. He was tall and thin, with pale blue skin and large hands. I have read Lady Hana's research, he said softly. Her theories about human creativity and emotional resilience were brilliant. I am sorry for what happened to her. Research? Daewon asked. She did not tell you? Suman smiled sadly. Hana was not just a collector. She was documenting everything, proving scientifically that human culture had measurable benefits, that emotion and art were not weaknesses but strengths. She was building a case to present to the Hegemony Council. Daewon felt his throat tighten. Hana had been working towards something larger than he understood. Where is she now? In detention awaiting trial, Suman said. But her arrest has created a situation. The Terraphile network is panicking. Some want to destroy their collections and hide. Others want to fight. We need to decide quickly. There is more, Jiwon added. He projected data from a device onto the warehouse wall. Images and charts filled the space. The Cultural Purity Bureau has been tracking the Terraphile movement for months. They know about hundreds of us. Hana's arrest was not random. It was coordinated. A purge, Sumin said quietly. They are planning to arrest every known Terraphile simultaneously. Destroy all human cultural artifacts. Make an example that will terrify anyone else who might be curious about Earth. When? Daewon asked. Soon, days perhaps. We intercepted communications that suggest they are waiting for something. Some kind of authorization from the highest levels. The 3rd figure finally spoke. It was massive, covered in dark scales with a voice like grinding rocks. They wait for Hana's trial. They want it public. A spectacle to show what happens to those who betray hegemony values. Who are you? Daewon asked. I am called Rock. I was a military enforcer before I heard human music. Now I help transport artifacts and protect the network. The creature's eyes, surprisingly gentle, focused on Daewon. Lady Hana saved many lives with her kindness. We will not abandon her. Sumian pulled out a communication device. The network is larger than you think. We have members on 30 different worlds. Scientists, artists, teachers, even some low-level government officials, all infected with the same disease, hope. She activated the device and faces appeared in holographic projection. Aliens of dozens of species all watching expectantly. This is Daewon, Sumin announced. He was with Hana when she was arrested. He carries her final data. Daewon held up the remaining data chips. She said to warn everyone. To protect the network. One of the faces, an alien with multiple tentacles, spoke. We should disperse. Hide our collections. Wait for this to pass. It will not pass, Jiwon argued. They know about us now. Hiding only delays the inevitable. Then what do you propose? Another voice demanded. Open rebellion? We are academics and artists, not warriors. We are humans and their allies, Rock growled. That should terrify them. Arguments erupted across the communication network. Fear and anger mixed with determination. Daewon listened, overwhelmed by the scope of what Hana had built. This was not a small group of eccentrics. This was a movement. Sumin silenced everyone with a sharp gesture. There is one option we have not discussed. Hana's trial will be broadcast across the hegemony. Billions will watch. What if we use that platform? Use it how? Daewon asked. To tell the truth. To show the galaxy what human culture really is. Not through academic papers or secret collections, but through direct experience. Sumin's scarred face split into a fierce smile. We flood the networks with human art. Music. Stories. Films. Everything we have been hiding. Release it all at once during the trial. That is insane, someone protested. They will hunt down everyone involved. They already plan to, Jiwon pointed out. This way, at least we make it mean something. And we give Hana support, Rock added. Show her she is not alone. Daewon thought of Hana's face when she first played piano. Her tears reading poetry. Her determination to feel something real no matter the cost. She would want this, he said quietly. She would want her sacrifice to matter. The vote was close, but it passed. Over the next 3 days, the network mobilized. Sumin coordinated communication. Jiwon worked with scientists to package the data for maximum impact. Rock gathered security teams to protect key members during the operation. Daewon's job was to organize the human cultural artifacts into categories: music, visual art, literature, film. He worked 20 hours a day, fueled by determination and grief. On the evening before the trial, Sumin found him asleep at a terminal, surrounded by data chips and half-eaten food. She shook him awake gently. The trial begins tomorrow, she said. Are you ready? No, Daewon admitted. But we do it anyway. She sat down beside him. You know this changes everything, right? After tomorrow, there is no going back. The hegemony will see human culture, really see it, and they will either embrace it or destroy us trying to eliminate it. Hana thought it was worth the risk. What do you think? Daewon looked at the data surrounding them. Thousands of years of human achievement. Art created by people who suffered and loved and dreamed. Culture that survived wars and disasters and now slavery itself. I think hope is contagious, he said finally. I think the hegemony is right to fear it. And I think once people feel something real, they cannot unfeel it. They cannot go back to being empty. Sumin nodded slowly. Then tomorrow we give the galaxy a choice. Emptiness or life. Perfection or beauty. Control or freedom. What if they choose control? She stood and offered him her scarred hand. Then we fight. But at least they will have seen what they are destroying. The next morning, as Hana's trial prepared to begin, the network waited in silence. Thousands of beings across dozens of worlds, all ready to press a single button, all ready to unleash humanity's most dangerous weapon. Not violence, not technology, but the simple, terrifying power of feeling something true. The Grand Tribunal of Thessera filled every screen across the hegemony. Billions of beings stopped their work to watch. Public trials were rare, reserved for crimes that threatened the very foundation of their society. Lady Hana's case qualified. Daewon watched from the warehouse with Sumin, Jiwon, and Rock. The broadcast showed the massive courtroom with its curved walls and elevated judge's platform. Hana stood in the center, small and alone, wearing the plain gray clothing of the accused. Her forearms were bound at her sides. She looked tired but unbroken. The chief judge, an ancient being called Elder Voss, read the charges. Lady Hana of House Aetheron, you stand accused of cultural contamination, possession of forbidden materials, and corruption of hegemony values. How do you answer? Hana's voice rang clear and steady. I am guilty of loving beauty. If that is a crime, then I am the worst criminal you will ever judge. Murmurs rippled through the courtroom. Elder Voss silenced them with a gesture. You collected human artifacts. You studied their primitive culture. You allowed a human slave unsupervised access to your household. You spread dangerous ideas to others of your station. I learned to feel, Hana said simply. Is that so terrible? The prosecution presented evidence. Images of Hana's collection flashed on screens. Books, paintings, musical instruments. The prosecutor, a thin alien named Kral, spoke with disgust. These items represent everything we have evolved beyond. Emotion, irrationality, chaos. The accused did not simply collect them. She worshipped them. I appreciated them, Hana corrected. There is a difference, Kral paced the floor dramatically. You corrupted yourself with human weakness. You cried. You laughed. You displayed emotional instability that endangered your position and our society. Worst of all, you infected others. We have evidence of a network of corrupted individuals, all tracing back to your influence. The screen showed intercepted communications, images of other collections on different worlds. The scope of the Terraphile network laid bare for everyone to see. In the warehouse, Suman tensed. They know more than we thought. Does it matter now? Ji-Wan asked, his hand hovering over the transmission button. Wait, Daewon said. Let Hana speak first. Elder Voss addressed Hana directly. What do you say to these accusations? That you have corrupted loyal citizens. That you have spread a disease of emotion that threatens our stability. Hana was silent for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice carried across the galaxy. I say that we are the ones who are corrupted. We eliminated emotion because we called it weakness. We engineered perfection and achieved emptiness. We exist, but we do not live. The courtroom erupted. Shouts of outrage mixed with scattered applause. Elder Voss demanded silence. My husband died 2 years ago. Hana continued. He was a military commander, brave, intelligent, perfect by our standards. When he died, I felt almost nothing, a vague sense of loss that faded within days. I moved on because that is what we do. Efficiency above all. She looked directly at the cameras broadcasting her face across the stars. Then I discovered human music. A simple song about love and grief, and I wept. For the first time in my life, I truly wept. Not because something was wrong with me, but because something was finally right. Emotional displays prove our point, Kral argued. You became weak. No, I became real. Hana's voice strengthened. I learned that humans create masterpieces from their pain. They write poetry about loss. They paint pictures of hope and darkness. They make music that captures joy and sorrow in the same breath. And through their art, they teach us something we have forgotten. What is that? Elder Voss asked, sounding genuinely curious despite himself. That suffering means nothing without the capacity to transcend it. That joy means nothing without the memory of sadness. That life is not about efficiency or perfection. It is about feeling deeply enough to know you are alive. The courtroom fell silent. Across the galaxy, billions of beings listened. Humans are not primitive, Hana said. They are sophisticated in ways we cannot measure. They process emotion through art, transforming personal pain into universal beauty. They hope even when hope is irrational because hope itself is an act of defiance against despair. They are stronger than us because they embrace everything we fear. In the warehouse, Suman looked at Daewon. Now, he nodded. Now. She pressed the button. Across the hegemony's entire communication network, something unprecedented happened. Every screen, every display, every device suddenly flooded with human culture. Music began playing in government offices. Films appeared on public monitors. Poetry scrolled across military command centers. Paintings filled educational facilities. The sheer volume was overwhelming. Thousands of artifacts released simultaneously, carefully distributed to prevent immediate shutdown. Before authorities could react, millions of beings experienced human culture for the first time. A mother on a distant colony world heard a lullaby and felt her child stirring in her arms with new tenderness. A factory worker saw a painting of mountains and remembered beauty existed beyond production quotas. A soldier watched a film about sacrifice and questioned what he was truly fighting for. In the courtroom, chaos erupted as screens filled with images and sound. Kral shouted for the transmission to be stopped. Technical staff scrambled to regain control. But the data was everywhere, duplicating itself, spreading like a living thing through the network. Elder Voss stood, trying to restore order. But even he paused when a particular piece of music began playing. A piano composition, simple and achingly beautiful. The notes hung in the air like physical things. Hana smiled through her tears. She recognized the piece. It was the first song she had learned to play. Turn it off, Kral demanded. This is an attack on our values. No, Elder Voss said slowly. Let it play. The music continued. In the silence that followed, something shifted. Beings who had never felt emotion stirred uncomfortably in their seats. Something was awakening inside them, something dangerous and wonderful. On worlds across the hegemony, citizens stopped working. They stood still, listening, watching, feeling. Some began to cry without understanding why. Others smiled at memories they did not know they had. A few laughed, the sound strange and new in their mouths. Reports flooded into the hegemony's central command. Productivity had stopped on 17 worlds. Communications networks were overwhelmed with messages. Citizens were demanding more information about Earth culture. Some were calling for human liberation. In the warehouse, Daewon watched the screens showing protests forming in major cities. Beings carrying signs demanding access to human art. Aliens shouting that they wanted to feel. It is working, Sumin whispered. The infection is spreading. But Lord Taeyang appeared in the courtroom with armed security forces. Enough, he commanded. This trial is over. The accused will be executed immediately for terrorism and cultural warfare. No. The voice came from Elder Voss. The ancient judge stood tall, his expression troubled but determined. She will be heard. This is treason, Taeyang snarled. This is justice. Sit down, Lord Taeyang. Reluctantly, the military commander obeyed. The power of the judicial system still meant something even now. Elder Voss turned to Hana. You have unleashed something we cannot control. Human culture is spreading like fire. Citizens are abandoning their posts. Our entire society is being disrupted. What do you say to this? Hana lifted her chin. I say good. Let it burn. Let everything burn that keeps us from being real. You would destroy us for your feelings? No. I would save us from the living death we call civilization. Hana looked around the courtroom at the shocked faces. We conquered Earth because we feared them. Not their weapons, not their violence, but their capacity to feel and create and hope despite suffering. We feared that if our people saw this, they would realize what we lost when we chose perfection. She gestured at the screens, still showing human art. Look at what they made. Look at the beauty they created from their pain. And ask yourselves, what have we created? What beauty exists in our perfect empty world? Silence answered her. We built a prison and called it paradise, Hana said softly, and I refuse to die in it without fighting for something more. Across the galaxy, her words resonated. In homes and workplaces and public squares, beings who had never questioned their existence began to wonder. What if the widow was right? What if they had lost something essential? In the warehouse, alarms began sounding. Rock checked security feeds and cursed. Military forces are mobilizing. They are coming for the network locations we identified. Then we run, Sumin said, gathering equipment. Where? Jiwon asked. Daewon looked at the screen showing Hana standing defiant in the courtroom. Everywhere. We scatter. We spread the message further. We make sure this does not die with us. The trial had done what they hoped. It had awakened something. Now they had to keep it alive long enough to grow into something that could not be stopped. They fled into the city as sirens wailed in the distance, carrying with them the seeds of revolution disguised as music and poetry and hope. The galaxy burned with awakening. Within hours of the trial's broadcast, 12 slave worlds erupted in coordinated rebellion. Humans who had lived in chains for 15 years suddenly found themselves with unexpected allies. Aliens who had spent their entire lives following orders discovered they could say no. Daewon crouched in a transit tunnel beneath the Sara, listening to reports filtering through Sumin's communication device. The news was almost impossible to believe. Feltros mining facility has fallen, Sumin read aloud, her scarred face lit by the screen's glow. Human slaves and sympathetic overseers working together. They have taken control of the spaceport. Kaloth Station reports similar uprising, Jiwon added from his own device. 300 terraphiles revealed themselves and opened the detention centers. Thousands of humans freed. Rock, the massive scaled warrior, monitored security frequencies. Hegemony military is scrambling. They did not prepare for this. They thought arresting Hana would end the problem. Instead, they created a martyr. The trial had been stopped mid-proceeding when the scope of the uprising became clear. Hana was returned to detention while the Hegemony Council held emergency sessions. Lord Taeyang had been given authorization to use whatever force necessary to crush the rebellion, which meant people were dying. We need to move, Daewon said. They will track these signals eventually. Move where? Jiwan asked. We are wanted on every hegemony world. There is nowhere to hide. Then we stop hiding, a new voice said. They all spun around. A human woman emerged from the shadows, flanked by 6 armed aliens wearing makeshift resistance insignia. She was tall and moved with military precision. Her eyes held the hard shine of someone who had seen too much death. Who are you? Sumin demanded, hand moving to a concealed weapon. My name is Bora. I lead the Human Resistance Network. She stepped closer into the light. We have been preparing for this moment since Earth fell. Small cells on every slave world. Weapons hidden. Plans made. We were just waiting for the right spark. Hana's trial, Daewon realized. Yes, and your cultural release. You gave us something more powerful than weapons. You gave the galaxy a reason to care about humans. Bora's smile was fierce. Now we capitalize on it. There is a strike force assembling to rescue Lady Hana. We want you with us. Rescue her from detention on Thessera? Jiwan sounded shocked. That is suicide. The facility is heavily guarded. Not anymore. Half the guard staff are Terraphiles who contacted us secretly. They will help from the inside. Bora pulled out a tactical display. We have a 20-minute window during a shift change. In and out before reinforcements arrive. Rock studied the plan critically. This could work. If we are fast. I am going, Daewon said immediately. You are not a soldier, Sumin protested. Hana saved my life. I will not abandon her. Bora nodded approvingly. Good, we move in 1 hour. Gather your equipment. The next hour passed in a blur of preparation. Bora's resistance fighters were experienced and efficient. They distributed weapons, body armor, communication devices. Daewon had never held a gun before. The weight felt wrong in his hands. Point and squeeze, Bora told him simply. Do not think about it too much. They traveled through maintenance tunnels to avoid security checkpoints. 12 fighters in total, 6 humans, 4 Terraphile aliens, and Rock. A small force for such a dangerous mission. The detention facility sat in the government district, a black tower rising from crystal foundations. Security drones circled it constantly. Armed guards stood at every entrance. But inside, sympathetic staff had been sabotaging systems all day. Camera feeds would loop. Door locks would malfunction at precise moments. The guards who were not Terraphiles would be called away on false alarms. It will still be close, Bora warned as they approached. If anything goes wrong, we abort and scatter. Understood? Everyone nodded. The first part went smoothly. Bora's contact inside opened a maintenance entrance. They slipped in during the shift change, moving through service corridors that staff used. The detention center held hundreds of prisoners, but Hana was in a special high-security wing reserved for political crimes. They reached her level without incident. Too easy, Daewon thought. Something felt wrong. Then alarms blared. Trap! Rock growled, raising his weapon. Security doors slammed shut, sealing them in the corridor. Armed guards poured from both directions. But these were not regular guards. They were elite military units, heavily armored and equipped with advanced weapons. Lord Taeyang's voice echoed through speakers. Did you think we were stupid? We allowed you to come here. Now you die together, and your pathetic rebellion dies with you. Find cover, Bora shouted, opening fire. The corridor erupted into chaos. Energy weapons lit the air. Daewon pressed himself against the wall as shots flew overhead. One of the resistance fighters fell, then another. They were outgunned and outnumbered. Jiwan worked frantically at a wall panel, trying to override the door locks. I need more time, he shouted. Rock charged forward with a roar, his massive body absorbing shots that would have killed anyone else. He crashed into the military line like a living battering ram, creating enough chaos for the others to advance. Sumin fought with cold efficiency, each shot precise and calculated, but there were too many enemies. They would all die here. Then the lights went out. Emergency lighting cast everything in red shadows. Confused shouts came from the military units. Through the darkness, a voice called out in perfect clarity. This way. One of the cell doors had opened. Hana stood there, free somehow, holding what looked like a control device. The sympathetic guards gave me this before the trap was sprung. Hurry. They ran to her position. Hana worked the device rapidly, opening more doors. Dozens of prisoners emerged, many of them Terraphiles arrested in recent days. The corridor filled with bodies, confusion spreading among the military units. The main entrance is blocked, Bora assessed quickly. We need another route. The roof, one of the freed prisoners said. An alien with wings folded against its back. I can carry 2 at a time. If others can find transport, maintenance ships, Hana said. On the service platform 3 levels up. I studied the facility schematics during my detention. They fought their way upward, using the freed prisoners as additional force. Many had no weapons but threw themselves at the guards anyway, buying precious seconds with their bodies. Daewon watched beings die for a cause that had started with a wooden bird and a widow who learned to cry. The service platform held 4 small maintenance craft, not designed for combat or long-range flight, but enough to escape. They piled in, cramming too many bodies into 2 small spaces. Military aircraft appeared in the sky as they launched. Rock piloted their craft with surprising skill, weaving between buildings as weapons fire streaked past. One of the other escape ships exploded, debris raining down on the city below. They are hurting us, Rock observed grimly, forcing us toward the military district. Let them, Bora said. She pulled out a communication device. All cells, this is Phoenix. Execute Operation Wildfire. Repeat, execute Wildfire. What is Wildfire? Daewon asked. Bora's smile was terrible. We are not the only team that moved today. While the military focused on rescuing Hana, our other cells hit targets across the city, power stations, communication hubs, supply depots, and now explosions bloomed across the Sahara like deadly flowers. The city shuddered under coordinated attacks. The military aircraft pursuing them peeled away, called back to defend critical infrastructure. You started a war, Hana said quietly. No, Bora replied. They started a war 15 years ago when they enslaved Earth. We are just finally fighting back. The craft landed in a rebel-controlled district where resistance forces had set up barricades. Humans and Terraphile aliens worked side by side, turning the streets into fortified positions. Children were being evacuated to underground shelters. Medical teams treated the wounded. It looked like revolution. News feeds showed similar scenes on other worlds. The coordinated uprising had caught the hegemony off balance. Slave worlds were liberating themselves. Free worlds were declaring support for the rebels. The galaxy was choosing sides, but the hegemony was vast. They had resources and military might beyond counting. Even with surprise and passion on their side, the rebellion could not win through force alone. That night, huddled in a makeshift command center, Daewon found Hana standing alone on a balcony overlooking the burning city. She looked exhausted but somehow more alive than he had ever seen her. Did you ever imagine this? He asked, joining her. No, I just wanted to feel something real. I never meant to start a revolution. Neither did I just wanted to carve birds. They stood in silence, watching the fires. Somewhere in the distance, weapons discharged. People were dying for the right to feel, to create, to be more than efficient machines. I am sorry, Hana said softly, for bringing you into this, for starting something I cannot control. Daewon thought about it. Thought about the mines where he had been a slave, about the wooden bird that had saved him, about teaching Hana to play piano and watching her discover tears, about all the beings across the galaxy who were finally waking from a long sleep. Do not be sorry, he said. This is the most human thing that ever happened to the stars. Hana's 4 hands found his 2, and they held each other as the galaxy burned and was reborn around them. Daewon stood at the observation window of the orbital station, watching reconstruction ships moving between the planet and the moon. Massive engineering projects worked to repair what the hegemony had broken. Cities were being rebuilt, forests were being replanted. The oceans poisoned during the conquest were gradually returning to life. It looks better each time I visit, Hana said, moving to stand beside him. Her 4 arms carried data tablets and communication devices. 5 years had changed her. She moved with confidence now, no longer uncertain about emotion. She laughed freely. She cried when she needed to. She had become, in her words, finally real. How was the council meeting? Daewon asked. Long, frustrating, but productive. Hana set down the tablets with a sigh. 3 more worlds have petitioned to join the Confederation of Free Worlds. The Aetheron delegation tried to block it, claiming we are moving too fast. They still fear change. They fear losing control, but the momentum is unstoppable now. The war had lasted 3 brutal years. The hegemony fractured into factions as more worlds declared independence. Some aliens chose freedom and emotion. Others clung to the old ways of logic and efficiency. The fighting was savage, with neither side willing to compromise. Human resistance fighters proved surprisingly effective, not because they were better warriors, but because they understood something the hegemony did not. They understood that people would die for meaning, but only live for efficiency. And beings who found meaning fought harder. The turning point came when G1 successfully reversed the genetic modifications that eliminated emotion in several alien species. Beings who had never felt anything suddenly experienced the full weight of existence. Some could not handle it and suffered mental breaks, but others bloomed like flowers after rain, discovering parts of themselves they never knew existed. Entire worlds chose to undergo the procedure. Military units defected when soldiers suddenly understood what they were fighting for and questioned whether it was worth dying for. The hegemony's rigid control structure collapsed under the weight of awakened consciousness. Earth was liberated in the war's second year. Day One had been there when the last hegemony governor surrendered. He remembered walking through the ruins of his old city, searching for anything familiar. Everything was gone. His family's restaurant was rubble. The street where he played as a child was a crater. But humans were resilient. They began rebuilding immediately, not just structures but culture. Museums opened to preserve what had survived. Schools taught children their history. Artists created new works inspired by the suffering and triumph of the war. And aliens came to learn. The Confederation of Free Worlds established Earth as its cultural heart. Representatives from hundreds of species arrived to study human art, music, literature, and philosophy. What had been forbidden and feared became the foundation for a new civilization. Hana had become Earth's primary ambassador to alien worlds. She traveled constantly, teaching others about the value of emotion and creativity. Her trial had made her famous across the galaxy. Many called her the Mother of Awakening. She hated the title but understood its usefulness. Daewon directed the Museum of Remembrance, dedicated to preserving the memory of the war and honoring those who fought for freedom. The museum's centerpiece was a recreation of Hana's original collection room, the hidden sanctuary where everything had begun. He kept the wooden bird he had carved in the mines under glass. Visitors stared at it for hours, unable to believe something so simple had sparked such massive change. "I have news," Hana said, pulling Daewon from his thoughts. "Lord Taeyang has been spotted in the Outer Rim. He is gathering loyalist forces. The hegemony remnant is preparing for another offensive." Daewon felt old anger stir. Taeyang had escaped during the war's final months, taking a fleet of warships and die-hard loyalists to the galaxy's edge. They raided free worlds occasionally, trying to destabilize the Confederation. The Cold War between old and new threatened to turn hot again. How many ships? Intelligence estimates 200, maybe more. They have been recruiting from isolated colonies that never joined the Confederation. That is enough to do real damage. Yes, the Council is debating whether to launch a preemptive strike or wait for them to attack first. Hana's expression was troubled. "I fear we will lose what we built if we become what we fought against." A chime interrupted them. The station's communication officer appeared on a screen. "Ambassador Hana, there is a priority call from Earth. Educational district. They say it is urgent. Put it through." A young alien appeared, barely past childhood. Its species had been modified 2 years ago, one of the first to volunteer for emotional restoration. "Ambassador, I am sorry to interrupt, but something happened. Something wonderful." "What is it, young men?" "I finished it. My first painting. Like humans do, from feeling instead of formula." The young alien's voice shook with excitement. "My instructor said it was good. She cried when she saw it." Hana smiled, and Daewon saw tears forming in her large eyes. "That is wonderful, young men. I am very proud of you. I wanted to thank you, both of you, for teaching us that we could be more than we were made to be." After the call ended, Hana wiped her eyes and laughed. 5 years ago, that child would have been assigned a function and never questioned it. Now they paint. They create. They feel. "Is it enough?" Daewon asked quietly. "All this progress, all this change, was it worth the cost?" Hana turned to face him fully. In 5 years, their relationship had evolved beyond master and slave, beyond teacher and student. They were partners in the truest sense, bound by shared purpose and deep affection. Whether that was love in the human sense, neither could say for certain. But it was real. 3 million beings died in the war, Hana said. Human and alien both. I think about them constantly. Wonder if there was another way. A path that did not require so much blood. But I watch young men learn to paint. I see species discovering laughter for the first time. I read the letters from parents who can finally bond with their children through emotion instead of efficiency. And I think, yes, it was worth it. They took a shuttle down to Earth's surface. The capital city had been rebuilt in a new style, blending human architecture with alien design sensibilities. The result was strange and beautiful, buildings that seemed to grow from the ground like living things. The Cultural Exchange Center occupied the old government district. Inside, aliens of dozens of species attended classes on human history, art, and philosophy. In one room, a group learned to play musical instruments. In another, students practiced painting. A third taught creative writing. Daewon walked through the halls observing. A hegemony soldier who had defected during the war now taught sculpture. A former slave from Veltros ran poetry workshops. Humans and aliens worked together, learning from each other, creating something new. In a garden at the center's heart, Daewon found the memorial. Names carved into black stone. Millions of them. The dead from both sides, because grief was universal regardless of species. Suman's name was there. She had died in the war's final year, leading an assault on a weapons facility. Her last message to the resistance had been simple. Keep teaching them to feel. Jiwon's name, too. The scientist who had given emotions back to emotionless species had been assassinated by hegemony loyalists. His research survived him, continuing to transform lives. So many names, so much loss. But around the memorial, life continued. Children played, artists sketched. Lovers held hands under trees transplanted from a dozen worlds. The dead had bought this future with their sacrifice. That evening, Hana and Daewon attended a concert at the new performance hall. The orchestra included humans and aliens playing instruments from across the galaxy. The composition they performed was revolutionary, a symphony that incorporated emotional resonance technology, allowing the audience to literally feel what the musicians felt. Daewon closed his eyes as the music washed over him. He felt joy and sorrow intertwined. He felt hope and fear and love and loss. He felt alive in a way that would have been impossible in the hegemony's perfect empty world. When the performance ended, the audience sat in silence for a long moment. Then applause erupted, beings cheering and crying and laughing all at once. The conductor, a human woman who had survived the slave mines, bowed with tears streaming down her face. Later, walking through the city under Earth's stars, Hana took Daewon's hand. "Do you ever miss it?" she asked. "The simplicity of the mines. When you were just a slave and I was just a widow. When the world was smaller." "Never," Daewon said firmly. "I miss the people we lost. But I do not miss who we were before we found each other." "Neither do I." They stood in a plaza where a fountain splashed under colored lights. Around them, beings of every species mingled freely. Languages mixed. Cultures blended. Children of different worlds played together, making up games that transcended their differences. "They were right to fear us," Daewon said softly, repeating words he had spoken years ago. "Not because we are violent, but because we taught them to want more than survival." Hana looked at him with those large, expressive eyes that had learned to reflect every shade of